Hi, I'm Tristan, and this is Thinking About Politics. So today we want to continue our examination on the U.S. NATO-backed government of Afghanistan. The one that was in power since the toppling of the Taliban in 2001, and until the Taliban rode back into power in 2021. Last time was sort of our introductory video, and we talked about the idea of nationhood versus statehood, and how those two things might not always be the same thing. We were left with the question, how would a newly formed Afghan government foster some sense of national unity? You know, a sense of nationalism, an idea of being an Afghan before being anything else. And we'll be doing a limited series here looking back on that Afghan government over the next few weeks. Make sure you give us a subscribe so you don't miss the latest. And if the spirit moves you, please give us a like or share this video around. That sort of stuff really helps our channel. So today we're going to start reading the Afghan Constitution and see if we can shed some light on how this new government was going to go about fostering this idea of being Afghan. But before we do that, let's get a little context. So the country of Afghanistan, that is to say the physical place with set borders that the rest of the world can print on its globes and its maps, is a product of European imperialism. In his book, State Formation in Afghanistan, Dr. Mujib Rahman Haramini says, the present state of Afghanistan as a new polity within its current borders took shape when Russian and British empires advanced through Central Asia and India. To avoid confrontation, both empires agreed to establish a buffer state, and the outcome of the decision was the creation of a new political entity as Afghanistan. Now, the British empowered a Pashtun royal family and relied heavily on the Pashtun elite to govern the new colony. This created a system that Dr. Rahmani says lasted until 1978 with periodic breakdowns and failures. One of the big insights I picked up from his book, written from the perspective of an Afghan native, has to do with the idea of the nation state itself. And this is an idea of European origin. And you know it. It's the idea where there's some group living on a peninsula called the Portuguese, and they get to have a country called Portugal. There are some other people living on another peninsula called the Greeks. They get to have a country. It's called Greece. Well, if Afghanistan was a buffer state created by the Russians and the British for their own imperial purposes, is there really a group of people out there that calls themselves the Afghans? And does that sort of idea even make sense in a place like this? Dr. Hramini says, the concept of community, umma, in its religio-cultural sense, is more important, dominant, and hegemonic in the Islamic political tradition than other modern concepts, e.g. state or particular political system. Some radical discourses argue that the Islamic polity is not a state in the European sense. Territoriality defined the sovereignty of its people and government. The Islamic polity is an organized politico-religious community, umma. And the purpose of umma is to spread the message, dawa. And the function of authority or power, sulta, is to achieve such a mission. The Islamic State, therefore, is a doctrinal state, with a distinct communal function based on a merger of ethical principles and political ideals, which implies a non-separation of private and public life. And you know what? This is going to be relevant here, because the Constitution we're looking at didn't establish a democratic republic or a liberal democracy the way we would think of it. It established an Islamic republic. So with these ideas in mind, let's go ahead and look at the preamble and chapters 1 and 2. Oh yeah, by the way, they break up their constitution into chapters. Cool, huh? What kind of nation does this government envision? Preambles are important. They tell you why a document is and what it's trying to do. The U.S. Constitution begins with we the people, right? Indicating that sovereignty is derived from the people. And that's not just cute talk. The Constitution was ratified by voters. Very easily could have been a job handed to governors or a state legislature. And hey, that's just one way to do it. Other folks might do it different. That's fine. This works for me, but totally cool if you found something different that works for you. So let's pop open this Afghan preamble and, take a look. What is the raison d'etre of the Afghan government? Let's get started here. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and most merciful. Well, there you go. So whatever else follows in this constitution, it's happening in the name of Allah. And hey, deriving your sovereignty from God ain't a terrible way to go. I am totally on record in past videos as saying that if there's a big man upstairs giving you marching orders, you should probably take those marching orders. But I'm also on record as saying that doing government that way is a non-stop recipe for war and disaster. That's not to judge. I'm just saying, in the name of Allah, the most beneficent and most merciful. Praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of worlds, and praise and peace be upon Muhammad, his last messenger, and his disciples and followers. We, the people of Afghanistan. Aha! There it is, you see? Believing firmly in Almighty God, relying on his divine will, and adhering to the holy religion of Islam. Bam! Islam. See what they did there, though? We, the people of Afghanistan, believing in God and adhering to holy Islam. People of Afghanistan equals Muslims. If you're a Muslim, you gotta ask yourself the question now, do I get to be Afghan? Realizing the previous injustices and miseries and innumerable disasters which has befallen our country, appreciating the sacrifices, historical struggles, jihad, and just resistance of all peoples of Afghanistan, admiring the supreme position of the martyrs of the country's freedom, comprehending that a united, indivisible Afghanistan belongs to all its tribes and people, observing the United Nations Charter as well as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So that's reading to be like the background here. And now it's going to tell us what they're intending to do. And in order to strengthen national unity, safeguard independence, national sovereignty, and territorial integrity of the country, establish an order based on the people's will and democracy, form a civil society void of oppression, atrocity, discrimination, as well as violence, based on rule of law, social justice, protecting integrity and human rights, and attaining people's freedoms and fundamental rights, strengthen political, social, economic, as well as defensive institutions, attain a prosperous life and sound living environment for all inhabitants of this land, and eventually regain Afghanistan's appropriate place in the international family. Well, they got a big to-do list. Have herein approved this Constitution in accordance with the historical, cultural, and social realities, as well as the requirements of time, through our elected representatives in the Loya Jirga, dated January 3rd, 2004, held in the city of Kabul. All right, put aside that Loya Jirga stuff for a second. For now, just know it's a traditional Pashtun term for Grand Council. It's something that gets called on a number of different important occasions when it comes to national decisions. So, looking at this preamble, while there is reference to things like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, while there are references to democracy, you understand this is an Islamic government that's being established here. It is democracy subject to Islam. The people of Afghanistan are definitionally Islamic. Again, that's an issue coming at it from that Western perspective that I have. Keeping in mind what Dr. Ramini was saying about the role of Islam in the state in places like Afghanistan and in these post-colonial Islamic countries. Well, you can certainly see that here. All right, so the deck is set here. Let's see how this government wants to organize its state and what can we infer about the project of building an Afghan national identity. Article 1. Afghanistan shall be an Islamic Republic, independent, unitary, and indivisible state. All right, so that's number 1. Now, I was actually surprised to learn that the Afghan government supported by NATO was actually an Islamic Republic. Primarily because the only other country I know that employs that term is Iran. It's like, the news tell me is my sworn enemy for, reasons. Or rose by any other name, I suppose. And besides the whole Islamic Republic thing, this line is kind of neat because it's telling us that Afghanistan is a whole and indivisible unity. One nation, indivisible, under God. Cool. Article 2. The sacred religion of Islam is the religion of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Followers of other faiths shall be free within the bounds of law in the exercise and performance of their religious rituals. So, there's a state religion. And sure, they say other religions are free to do their thing, within reason. But is there really freedom of a religion where one religion is officially endorsed by the state? And everybody else is just sort of, tolerated? Article 3. No law shall contravene the tenets and provisions of the holy religion of Islam in Afghanistan. You got that? There's religious freedom here, so long as you don't go against Islam. And here we are, only 3 articles into this Constitution, and I think we've firmly established the role Islam plays in this government and in this state. And using things like a common religion is one way to try to build that sort of national unity. So the message I'm getting here is that this Afghan state is an Islamic Republic. Not to the exclusion of other religions, but certainly nothing that goes against Islam would be tolerated. None of that sounds like freedom of religion. Article 4. National sovereignty in Afghanistan shall belong to the nation, manifested directly and through its elected representatives. The nation of Afghanistan is composed of all individuals who possess citizenship of Afghanistan. The nation of Afghanistan shall be comprised of Pashtun, Tajik, Hazara, Uzbek, and other tribes. The word Afghan shall apply to every citizen of Afghanistan. No individual of the nation of Afghanistan shall be deprived of citizenship. So thinking again about nationhood, about commonalities between people. What does it mean to be Afghan when there's more than a dozen tribal or ethnic nationalities kicking around? Not to mention a number of different languages. Well, here, according to Article 4, sovereignty is derived from the nation, and the nation is defined in two different ways. One, as individuals who possess Afghan citizenship. The emphasis for me here is that this focuses on the individual. The second is that the nation shall be comprised of the enumerated tribes and others. In my head, this kind of seems like if the Constitution of the United States didn't derive its authority from the people and didn't say we the people, but said we the people and the states. It might make you think that the states have a lot more authority in the governing of the country. All right, so both individuals and these groups possess some sort of national sovereignty, and that sovereignty is then manifested in the National Assembly. Okay, man, Article 4 is doing some heavy lifting here. So now with Article 4 out of the way, what does it mean to be Afghan? Well, for the moment, I'd say a citizen, a Muslim, and a member of one of these tribes. That would make me an Afghan. If I were a Buddhist and I didn't identify as a member of any of those tribes, even if I had Afghan citizenship, I don't know that I'd necessarily feel like I'm part of the nation in the same way. I might be tolerated, but unwanted. And I hope you can see the sort of contradictions that are starting to bubble up here. How can you support the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and create a liberal democracy while also being established in the name of a single religion and specifically outlining practices that contravene that religion? Maybe what we're seeing are the product of a lot of different interest groups in conflict while trying to hammer this document out, so you get contradictory messages. Maybe this is an example of, though some forces really wanting to push a more modern approach to the nation, and others who want to push a more maybe culturally authentic theory of government and state. I mean, just compare what we read in Articles 1 through 3 with Article 6. The state shall be obligated to create a prosperous and progressive society based on social justice, preservation of human dignity, protection of human rights, realization of democracy, attainment of national unity, as well as equality between all peoples and tribes, and balance the development of all areas of the country. It seems so different than what we read before. And my sense is that a lot of these contradictions, like I said, are the result of different interest groups bouncing off each other. For flavor, check out Article 9. Where it says all subterranean resources are going to be the property of the government. That's nationalization. That's old school socialism. That could scare a lot of people. But in Article 10, the Constitution reassures that capital investment is going to be protected. That's in their Constitution. There's some other random stuff in here too. Article 15 pledges the government's interest in protecting forests and the environment. Rock on. Article 18, they pick a calendar. 19, they settle on flag colors. So I think we looked at the relevant pieces here when it comes to nation building, and that's just the state. In Chapter 2, we're looking at what looks like their Bill of Rights. Let's check it out. So this chapter kicks off at Article 22, and we immediately hit an issue, or at least I do. Any kind of discrimination and distinction between citizens of Afghanistan shall be prohibited. The citizens of Afghanistan, man and woman, have equal rights and duties before the law. So if Article 22 says no discrimination, but Article 3 implies that no religions will be allowed that contravene Islam, does Article 3 violate Article 22? Or is the defense here there's equality because everybody has the equal opportunity to practice Islam? And I think we get our answer to this if we read closely in Articles 34 and 35. Article 34 states, freedom of expression shall be inviolable. Every Afghan shall have the right to express thoughts through speech, writing, illustrations, as well as other means, in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution. Every Afghan shall have the right, according to the provisions of law, to print and publish on subjects without prior submission to state authorities. What this really says to me is that you have freedom of expression except in the realm of religious affairs. The state is free to put up restrictions on speech that offends Islam. So even though this article is in the language of protecting freedom, I encourage you to read very closely on this one. This is a limit on the freedom of speech in the realm of religion. And when you have a religion that is favored by the state, limiting religious dialogue necessarily limits political dialogue, just definitionally. And then check out Article 35, covering freedom of association. The first part reads, to attain moral and material goals, the citizens of Afghanistan shall have the right to form associations in accordance with the provisions of law. The people of Afghanistan shall have the right, in accordance with provisions of the law, to form political parties, provided that 1. Their manifesto or charter shall not contravene the holy religion of Islam and principles and values enshrined in this Constitution. No anti-Islam parties. 2. Their organization and financial resources shall be transparent. They shall not have military or quasi-military aims and organizations. 4. They shall not be affiliated with foreign political parties or other sources. And again, emphasis added here, the bolded language means you can limit association. You can limit the formation of political parties. And then at the very end, the article includes a proviso that definitionally excludes the formation of certain political parties. The formation and operation of a political party on the basis of tribalism, parochialism, language, as well as religious sectarianism shall not be permitted. So this government is trying to be inclusive insofar as it wants to include all Islamic sects and all the various ethnic groups. But this drive towards inclusivity is contradicted by the protections given to Islam alone. My entire adult life, my tax money has been used to try to prop up this government. Why were we being told we were funding this liberal democracy when it was in reality an Islamic Republic? And just to add insult to injury, while I was drowning in college debt, under Article 43, Afghans got free college. They got publicly funded college. I want publicly funded college. Why do they get publicly funded college but I can't? That's not fair. Oh, and they get health care too. Article 52. I didn't even have health care before Obamacare rolled around and made it affordable. So thus far, we've seen how this document attempts to create a nation out of the disparate groups in Afghanistan, including all tribal and ethnic and linguistic groups, as well as Islamic sects. Next time, we're going to take a look at how the government created by this constitution was structured, and just take a look at what the government looked like from that perspective. Most of that's covered in chapters 4 through 8 in the Constitution for those who want to read ahead at home. Anyway, that's going to be it for me now. I mean, you've been great. Hope to see you again next time, but until then,
keep cool. I ain't got time to kiss you now. I'm busy with this mule.